Heya, heya, see below. Heya, heya, storm wind blow.
Chapter 12. The Hawk Above the Fleet. Tavaro learned within the first hour that guilt had poor wings. The hawk mark carried him. That was the proper way to say it. The mark burned along the bones that had become wing and back, remembering Orokan's storm heights, remembering talons through his shoulders, remembering the day Sky tried to keep him and failed. The mark knew air. It knew lift, glare, distance, hunger, the useful violence of height. It did not know what to do with shame. Shame dragged. Each wing beat lifted him over the eastward water, and each lift cost more than it should. Blood had dried in the feathers along his right wing, where the torn wrist seam had folded itself into the shape. His left side burned with every deep pull of air. His wing strokes had already learned to hide the bad side. Useful, untrustworthy. Below him the Farbound fleet moved like a decision that had not yet learned its own weight. The ships had good moments. Tavaro would grant them that, privately, where no one could be harmed by his generosity. The lead deep hull cut the morning water with stubborn grace. Maru kept it a little south of the wind, letting the smaller craft ride wake instead of scattering across chop. Two outriders corrected their spacing after only one terrible mistake. Someone had moved the water jars off the second hull's starboard side before the list became dangerous. Senara likely, or Maru. Probably Senara making Maru choose between obedience and drowning. Tavaro banked higher into the glare. The fleet also had bad moments. Those were more numerous. A rear boat drifted wide because its steering oar was too short for the weight it carried. A boy on the third deep hull had tied a sail line with a knot that would slip if the wind freshened. The patched western cutter had exceptional nerve even existing. Its forward brace looked worse from above than it had from the dock, which felt personal. One guide boat carried too many people near the bow because everyone wanted to see the land they imagined ahead. They would learn. The sea enjoyed teaching. Tavaro circled high enough that his shadow fell behind the sails, not across them. He kept the sun at his back and the wind under his left wing. That hurt less. Less was not little. Below, the fleet still carried the shape of departure. Grief sat in the spacing between bodies. People kept turning back toward the west, even after the island had flattened into blue haze. Children leaned against bundles and slept too hard. Adults did not sleep at all. A few sang under their breath. Not the leaving song now. Work, rhythm. Water, rhythm. Something Maru had beaten into them before panic could make every hand private. On the lead hull, Maru stood at the stern with her blood-dark head wrap and her red cord tight around one wrist. She moved as if pain had been assigned a place on deck and told not to block the lines. When a sailor hauled too early, she struck the rope with the flat of her knife. Not the sailor. The rope on the pull, she said. The sailor corrected. Good captain. Tavaro climbed a little higher. He was not here to admire them. He was not here to be admired. He was not here. That was the arrangement. The child mark gave a faint heat through the cold body. Somewhere beneath feathers, where ribs should have been. I know, he tried to say. It came out as a harsh cry. Every deck below looked up. Tavaro swore in Hawk, which sounded much the same. A child on the lead ship pointed. Others followed. Heads tipped back. A woman made the old Sulari sign. Throat, then heart. A man made the newer root sign. 2 fingers down the wrist. One sailor spat into the water. Fair Lapo stood near the center of the lead deck, with a slate in one hand and his bandaged hand closed around nothing. Tavaro knew the exact moment Lapo saw him. The young man's shoulders locked. He did not point. He did not shout. He only looked up, face too still, then lowered his gaze to the slate and said something to Senara. Senara stood near the mast with the root staff wrapped in plain cloth and strapped behind her shoulder. The survey kit hung at her hip. Her hair had escaped its tie at one temple. Her sleeves were rolled above the elbow. She had one hand on the medicine chest and one on the rail, not for balance, for count. She did not look up. Lapo spoke again. Riva looked up instead. She was beside the food bundles with a strip of dried fruit in one hand and a coil of waste rope in the other. She followed Lapo's gaze, found the speck of Tavaro against the sun, and went still for less than a breath. Then she shoved the fruit into a child's hand. "Eat," she said. "Sky can wait." The child obeyed. Riva turned to Lapo. Tavaro could not hear her through the wind, but he knew the shape of the command by her hands. Rope, food, children, now, not forgiveness, not wonder, work. Senara finally lifted her head. Tavaro climbed higher before her eyes found him clearly. Coward. The child Mark warmed. "Yes," he cried into the wind. "I have heard the reviews." Below, the fleet moved through the outer Sulari route. This water still knew him. Tavaro had raised the reef teeth to the north and the crescent island to the south. He had set the deep channel after the first settlers nearly lost 3 boats to a false shoal. He had dragged black stone into a half-ring that forced the larger moorspawn wide. Smaller things could pass, yes? Nothing kept out everything. Safe was a boast made by fools and people selling passage. Still, this was Tavaro water. Even angry with him, it held the shape of his old protection. The Farbound knew it too. People relaxed by degrees as the morning stretched. Shoulders lowered. Children leaned farther over rails, until Riva began tying waistlines to any child with more curiosity than sense. Someone passed food from bundle to bundle. A crew on the third hull took up Maru's rhythm. Low and rough, full jars covered, loose rope tied, eyes on the count. Not pretty. Better. Tavaro let the rhythm carry beneath him and searched the water. Hawk eyes loved surfaces. They caught silver fish, current rips, slicks, foam breaks, the trembling line where wind struck hidden pressure. Tavaro could read water in hawk form better than most sailors could read a face. Under the fleet, sea blue shifted into bands, reef green, channel dark, sand flash, old route. Beyond that, eastward, the colour changed, not more deep proper, not yet, not the old black pressure where hunger had soaked into the bones of the world. This was the approach, where the ocean stopped remembering islands and began remembering depth. The currents were wrong. Tavaro banked. The lead hull held course. The guide-boats followed. Far below, a line of pale foam moved against the wind. Another crossed it. Softer, almost invisible, except where sunlight touched the ripple. There should have been a west pull here. Gentle, irritating, like a child tugging at a sleeve. Today the pull went east and down. Down mattered. Surface currents lied often. Deep currents lied less, because they did not know anyone was listening. Something under the fleet was drawing water into itself. Not a moorspawn, not one body, too broad, more deep pressure, moving farther west than it should. Tavaro scanned the horizon. No black boil, no feeding birds, no dead fish, no purple slick from moorspawn blood, no gleam of Vadruk's crownback shell breaking surface like a smug reef. Still wrong. The child Mark pulsed once. I know. His voice was a cry again. This time, fewer people looked up. Good. They were already learning to treat him as weather. That hurt. That helped. He banked toward the fleet's rear. The patched cutter lagged. Of course it did. The forward brace had begun to flex in the wrong rhythm. Every time the cutter climbed a swell, the brace took the strain late. The third late strain would crack it. Perhaps fourth. The wind was gentle enough to make sailors lazy, which meant it was cruel. Tavaro dropped lower. A girl sat near the cutter's stern, holding a coil of rope bigger than her lap. Her hair had been braided with green cloth. She hummed Maru's rhythm under her breath and watched the lead ships as if sight could pull them nearer. A man on the cutter adjusted the sail and failed to see the brace. Tavaro folded his wings and dove. Air struck his face. Pain struck everything else. He came down behind the sail, hidden from the lead ships by canvas. The man looked up too late. Tavaro hit the top of the sail with both feet, not hard enough to break it, hard enough to force the canvas to billow wrong. The boom swung. The man cursed and ducked. The sail line whipped loose from its bad peg and snapped across the deck. The cutter lurched. The girl screamed. Everyone looked at the sail, then at the brace. A crack showed along the forward join. Brace! The man shouted. Tavaro beat upward before anyone could see more than a dark blur, a burst of feathers, and the general impression of rudeness. Men and women scrambled on the cutter. Ropes shifted. Weight moved aft. 2 sailors dropped the sail to half. A young woman with arms like a net hauler jammed a spare spar across the brace and began lashing it tight. Ugly work. Good work. Tavaro climbed back into glare. His left wing shuddered. Small dive. Minor adjustment. Barely anything. The right side of his body disagreed. The child Mark pulsed. You saw the brace, he muttered through hawk breath. Warmth answered. He hated how much he needed that. By midday, the fleet passed the last reef sign. Tavaro knew the place, not because of the black stone marker rising behind them with old Sulari symbols and his own handprint burned into the seaward face. He knew because his body felt the change. The skybone line, folded inside the cauled wing, went quiet. Inside the roots, the line always hummed faintly. It had touched the sea floor there, raised stone there, pulled land from black water there. The line remembered work the way Scar remembered blade. Beyond the marker, silence. The Farbound had crossed past Tavaro's made world. A cheer rose from the lead hull, small at first, then spreading. Ships answered one another. Some raised hands, some wept. Some stood too close to rails and were corrected by better sailors. Maru's horn cut once through the noise, not ending the cheer, only keeping it from breaking the work. Tavaro circled above them and felt nothing simple. They celebrated surviving the first gate. They celebrated leaving the old roots. They celebrated the line going quiet beneath his skin. He wanted anger. Anger had uses. It warmed the hands, sharpened vision, made monsters easier to divide into parts. But below him, an old man touched his forehead to the deck. A young mother held her baby toward the east. A boy kissed the mast and got splinters in his lip. Riva caught him by the chin, inspected the damage, and made him spit into her palm before she wrapped the cut with a strip torn from her sleeve. Fools, brave fools, people. The child Mark warmed. I am getting tired of that lesson, Tavaro said. Wind took the words from the shape. The cheer faded into labor. The sea did not care for ceremonies. Wind shifted. Sailors adjusted. Senara moved through the lead deck with Lapo behind her, checking lashings, water covers, sleeping spaces, sick bodies under stern shade. She did not command like Oren. Oren had made the future lean toward people. Senara made people move their feet. A man argued with her near the water jars. Tavaro could not hear every word through wind, but he saw the posture. The man thought his age, beard, and volume had rank. Senara let him finish. Then she pointed to the jars, to the sun, to the children, to the man's own belly, and finally to the side of the ship. The man moved the jars. Riva brought him a strip of hard fruit afterward and put it against his chest. He shook his head. She pushed harder. He ate. Not Senara, not Maru. Riva made survival personal enough to swallow. Tavaro turned away before looking became hunger. By afternoon, the fleet's weakness became harder to deny. Distance stretched between craft, not dangerously yet. Enough. The lead hull wanted to move faster than the second. The cutter wanted to be a mistake somewhere behind everyone else. The remaining guideboats kept crossing each other's wake because the young pilots were too focused on the lead ship and not focused enough on water directly beneath them. Then the undertow line arrived. It was almost invisible, almost. A pale seam opened ahead of the cutter, running north to south across the fleet's rear. Wind brushed over it. Foam broke and vanished. The water there moved sideways while the surface pretended forward. Tavaro tucked one wing and dropped. The cutter was already too close. The girl with the coil saw the seam first. She stood, pointed, shouted something Tavaro could not hear. The man at the sail turned too late. Another sailor threw a rope toward the nearest outrider. Good idea, bad throw. The rope fell short, slapped water, and began to slide away. A boy on the outrider leaned out. Too far. No. Tavaro dove. The boy grabbed the rope with both hands, grinned at his own success, and then the undertow caught the line. It yanked him overboard. The shout from the outrider hit every ship behind it. Tavaro had half a breath to choose. Shark would reach him. Shark would also be seen. A great predator appearing beside the fleet would bring panic, spears, overturned boats, and several fair accusations. Hawk then. He folded wings and struck the water in a narrow spear of feather and pain. Cold swallowed him. For one breath, the called shape became wrong. Hawk was not made for sea. Wings dragged, feathers soaked. The undertow seized him and pulled. The boy thrashed ahead. Rope still clenched in his teeth now, because both hands had gone stupid with fear. Tavaro kicked with talons and beat ruined water with wings. Pain roared through the right wing where the seam wound hid beneath shape. He reached the boy, clawed the rope, and struck upward. A hawk could not pull a boy. A hawk could pull the rope toward the boy's hands. The boy grabbed it. Tavaro raked talons along the rope until it slid across the boy's chest. The current pulled them both sideways. Sailors on the outrider hauled. The rope went tight. The boy moved. Tavaro did not. The current had his soaked wings. He let the water take him down for 3 heartbeats, folded tighter, then called heat through the hawk mark. Not change, refusal. Feather remembered air. The mark burned. His body lightened just enough to twist upward. He broke the surface behind the cutter. Wings heavy, mouth open, eyes stinging with salt. The boy was being pulled into the outrider. The cutter had the tow line. Good. Tavaro tried to launch from the water. Nothing happened. He flapped. The right wing failed halfway through the stroke. The left beat spray into his own face. A shout rose from the cutter. There! A spear lifted. Tavaro froze. The sailor holding it saw a huge wet hawk in the water, red, streaked along one wing, too large to be natural, too close to their boat, too much like omen, threat, Tavaro, all of it. The spear drew back. Senara's voice cut across the water. No, the spear stayed. Tavaro looked toward the lead ship. Senara stood at the rail, one hand lifted, the other gripping the wood. Reva stood behind her with a child pressed against her hip. Lapo had both hands on the rail. Maru's horn hung at her side. Senara had shouted for him, or for the sailor. Difference mattered. Difference did not save him from wanting. The current tugged him under again. No time. He called the beetle mark. Smallness hit like a snapped cord. Water became a world of force. Hawk body vanished into hard shell. Tiny limbs, a speck caught in moving blue. The current flung him upward, sideways, nowhere. He could not breathe this way long. A floating scrap from the cutter passed above him. He released the beetle mark against it. Human shape would be too heavy. Hawk again. The transformation struck the underside of the plank and launched it. Tavaro came with it, wings half spread, talons digging into wet wood. The plank bobbed. He beat his wings once. Pain. Twice. More pain. On the third beat, he lifted free. Low, too low. He climbed in ugly circles, shedding water, every feather dragging. No one threw a spear. The fleet cleared the undertow line. The cutter survived. The boy survived. Tavaro rose slowly into the glare and hated the joy that filled him. It entered like breath after drowning. He had saved someone, even unseen, even hated, even after Oren. The act made a bright little room inside him, and he stepped toward it before shame caught his ankle. Was that why he had come? For the boy? For the fleet? For Senara? Or for that one moment when his body mattered and the world made sense again? The child mark burned. Tavaro almost dropped from the sky. No, he cried. It burned harder. I know I liked it. Heat. I know. The mark did not stop. He climbed until the fleet blurred beneath him. Wind dried his feathers. Pain returned with each beat. The standing medicine thinned further, and with it came shaking, not only body, mind. Oren's head against the wall beam. Lapo's face when he said murderer. Senara shouting no across the water. Riva shoving food into a child's hand, because grief did not excuse an empty belly. Maru turning the fleet by signal, not surrendering command to a hawk's cry. They were still themselves below him. That should have relieved him. It did not forgive him. He wanted to land on the lead deck and put his head under Senara's hand like a beaten animal. He wanted to fly east until no one knew his name. He wanted a monster. Monsters were kind in one way. They let him be simple. The sea below darkened. Tavaro stilled in the air. The undertow line had passed behind the fleet, but the water ahead was wrong in another way. The surface lay too smooth. Wind moved across it, yet no chop formed. The lead ship entered the calm and slowed by the smallest degree. Not calm, skin. A broad sheet of sea had gone flat, as if something below had pressed upward and held the water in place. Tavaro circled once. No fin, no claw, no tentacle, no bubbles. The fleet kept sailing. He dipped lower, cautious now, every old battle sense waking. Hawk eyes pierced glare, red shadow, sorted color. Beneath the lead ship, far down, something vast moved in the same direction, not rising, matching them, long, wider than a deep hull, perhaps wider than all three together. Hard to see, because it held below the color shift, where water turned from blue to black-green. Its shape was not the Ninemore's folded bulk, not a whale, not any mark he had earned. The more deep currents bent around it, no, toward it. The thing below was drinking the current. Tavaro's wings locked for one heartbeat. The lead ship passed over its shadow. On deck, Senara turned suddenly and looked down at the water. The wrapped rootstaff on her back flared green through the cloth. Maru stopped mid-signal. Riva caught the nearest child by the waist rope and pulled him back from the rail. Lapo lifted his slate, as if a count could stop what was beneath them. Far below, the vast shape opened one pale eye.
Sky runs thin.
Sea turns deep.
Blood and feather.
Shame and bone.
A hawk flies where no songs can keep. Has four
Wings, but the hawk mark knew the air. It lifted Tavaro eastward, with pain he would not share. Below the Farbound scattered, like a choice that learned to float. Three deep hulls and outriders, one cracked and stubborn boat.
he kept above their sail lines,
where gratitude could not climb.
no shadow on their canvas,
No rescue turned to shrine. Do not praise, do not see. Let the wind erase the name. If teeth rise from the water, only then become the flame. The hawk above the fleet, bleeding where the sky bone sleeps. No thanks, no debts, no home, only watch above the deep. The hawk above the fleet, where the old safe waters end. He does not fly as savior, he follows far behind them.
Maru held the stern line with blood around her head.
On the pull, not before it, keep the living fed.
Senara moved through bodies
With the root staff wrapped in green,
Lapu counted names in water.
forever tied each child unseen.
past the final marker.
The old route fell away.
They cheered beyond his made world,
And entered stranger day.
the sky-bound line went silent.
No race advanced near.
They crossed beyond this handwork,
Carrying their fear. The hawk above the fleet, bleeding where the sky-born sleeps. No thanks, no debt, no home, only watch above the deep. The hawk above the fleet, where the old safe waters end. He does not fly as savior, he follows far behind them.
the cutter drifted backward. The brakes began to split,
He dove behind the sailcloth.
and forced their eyes to it.
Ugly knots and better hands, a
Spar lashed hard in place,
heroes before they knew him. And
vanished into space.
then the undertow took hold. A boy went overboard. One rope caught between the boats. One cry cut like a sword.
Hogs drop water,
Feather drowned,
currents pulled him low.
talons found the rope line.
Hands above, pulled slow. The boy came up coughing.
The copper cleared the scene.
A spear rose at the wet blackbird.
Too large to be a dream.
Senara shouting no.
Cross the broken tide.
The spear stayed in the sailor's hand.
The hawk fought back to sky.
The hawk above the fleet,
Bleeding where the sky-born sleeps. No thanks, no debt, no home, only watch above the deep. The hawk above the fleet, where the old safe waters end. He does not fly as savior, he follows far behind them.
joy came like first breathing.
Bright enough to shame,
He had saved one living child, and
wanted back the name.
the child mark burned beneath him.
No light could pass the scar,
Was he guarding them from danger?
or needing what they are.
He climbed to the fleet blur,
He let the question stay,
because monsters made him simple.
and people took that away.
The hawk above the fleet,
Bleeding where the sky-born sleeps. No thanks, no debts, no home, only watch above the deep. The hawk above the fleet, where the old safe waters end. He does not fly as savior, he follows far behind them. Then the water went too quiet,
no char
beneath the breeze. The lead hull crossed a skin of calm.
that's still the open seas.
Senara turned toward the rail.
Green fire through the cloth,
Maru stopped her signal.
river pulled a child off.
Lapo raised his state in fear, as if a count could hold the tide. Far below, the dark drank current, and one pale eye opened wide.